Hello everyone. This lecture we want to look at new customer acquisition, which means we want to understand, let me do that once again. That means we want to understand at what rate have we been acquiring customers. Since acquiring customers is quite costly, and especially for companies in e-commerce and in the mobile app space, the customer acquisition cost can be quite high because there is a cash burn involved. It's very important to analyze and identify the pace at which we are acquiring customers. So what we have here is about 50,000 transactions, the order date, the market, the customer ID. There are six markets we have: Africa, Asia Pacific, Europe and Middle East, the EU, LATAM, and North America. Now, what we want to do here is to look at what rate we are acquiring the customers. First thing we want to do is to find the acquisition date. That means the acquisition date, which would be nothing but very simply the min fs of column A, the criteria range is column C, and the criteria is C2. If we copy it all the way down, and let me also convert everything into a date. It is telling us the acquisition date for that particular customer. Once we have done this, we need to find whether this is a new or not. So we can write here that if the order date is equal to the acquisition date, then the customer is a new customer, otherwise it's a returning customer. If we, obviously in the beginning, everybody would be new. Once we scroll down quite a bit, let me just check the results once. Okay, we have to put a dollar sign here. Perfect. So now if we scroll down, you can see that some of these are returning, which means that this particular ID has already appeared one time. Right. Now we want to filter only the new. That means we're not interested in the transactions where the customer is a returning customer. We are only interested in the new, which means filter. We are going to filter our entire data. We want to include We want to include if F2 colon F51291 is equal to new. That means that out of 51,290 transactions, now it will only give us about 9,804 transactions, which is clearly telling us that these are the acquisition dates of each of the customer ID. Perfect. So now we are getting somewhere. Now we need to join these. That means we want to join our customer ID and the minimum, which means equal to customer ID and the minimum. Since we have not taken the minimum, let me just quickly update the formula to also select column E because we want the acquisition date. Perfect. And now for my joint, we can take equal to our customer ID and the acquisition date. Let's copy it all the way down. Perfect. All right. And now we want to find the unique customers, which would be equal to unique from the left of N2 colon, let me just select it properly, from N2 to N89805. We want to find the length of N2 till N9805 minus 5. So essentially what we are doing is that we are first removing the last 5 characters, which is the date, and we only want the unique list of customer IDs, which is this. So there are 4,873 unique customers that we have. Once we have done this, we also want to find the acquisition date. Now, since we already have the acquisition date in column E, we can use a X lookup to search in column C for the customer ID and in column E for the acquisition date. And this will give us the acquisition date as well. So let's pause and understand what we have done so far. We have managed to create a list of unique customer IDs. And along with that, we also have the acquisition date with us. Perfect. And now that we have done this, we can look at a list of unique dates, which would be like this. These are all the dates on which a customer has been acquired. You will notice there are some missing dates because on those dates, no customers were acquired. And now we can simply write the acquired customers are equal to count if we are looking at the acquisition date, and we are searching for the unique date, which is the 1st of January. Let's copy it down. And now this tells us that on the 1st of January, 4 customers were acquired. On the 2nd of January, 1 customer was acquired. And on the 3rd of January, 11 customers were acquired. Now we can also get this result using a pivot table, which is what I want to show you right now. Let's see. Now that we want to make a pivot table, we would want to, just give me a moment. We would want to look at the list of customers and the acquisition date, but I think we should keep the market as well. So let me just color it green. And since we need the market here, let's just do a X lookup. We can search for the customer ID in column C and get a result from column B. Perfect. This is what we are interested in. We're looking at the market, the customer ID, and the acquisition date. There are 4,873 customers. Let's create a pivot table. Insert pivot table. And once we have done that, the rest is very simple. We'll keep the acquisition date in rows. We will keep the market in columns, and we will keep the unique in our values. And this is how our data appears. Let me just ungroup it. And let's just make sure that everything is coming properly. Right, everything seems okay. Just one more thing we have to do. Since we want to look at the acquisition as a cumulative, you will also have to right click and then show the values as a running total. And what does it mean? It means that on the 1st of January, 4 customers were acquired. Then on the 2nd of January, we acquired 1 more customer, so the total became 5. And this number keeps on increasing. So this is a cumulative total, which obviously will end at 4,873. Now we can insert a line chart. And very nicely, you can see how the customer acquisition was very steep in the beginning. And then around the month of January, in the second year of business, it started to flatten out. If you look at Africa and Europe, Middle East, you notice that it has been fairly constant. But if you look at North America, it was very steep and then it sort of fell from this month, and it is still number one in terms of customer acquisition, but it is slowly declining. But if you look at the EU and if you look at APAC, in the last 1 year or so, it has been quite bad and we're not acquiring a lot of customers. For example, in January of 2012 and by the time of December of 2014, other than North America, all the other regions seem to be very close to each other. You can also insert a timeline, insert pivot table analyze and insert a timeline. If you want to look through the data in a slightly zoomed in view. So if you don't want to look at the entire period at once, we can create a timeline like this and we can just view the data for maybe only 1 year or 2 years. For example, this would be the acquisition in the last 1 year of my business. So you can see how APAC and EU have been very flat and very low, but Africa has been growing very fast.